The water we use today has been around for a long time. That is because water can recycle itself in the water cycle, which is also called the hydrologic cycle. Let's start the cycle with the evaporation of water from the surface of the ocean. As this moist air is lifted, it cools and water vapor condenses. It may form clouds. In fact, clouds are made up of tiny water droplets and ice crystals that are so small they can float in the air. This moisture in the atmosphere may be transported around the globe until it returns to the surface as precipitation. Precipitation may take the form of rain, snow, sleet or hail. Now once this water reaches the ground, one or two processes may occur. Some of the water may evaporate back into the atmosphere, or the water may penetrate the surface and become groundwater. The groundwater may take several different paths. The groundwater may seep in its way into the ocean's river or streams, or it may go into an aquifer, which is a body of saturated rock through which water can easily move, or it may be released back into the atmosphere through transpiration. Transpiration occurs when leaves from trees and other vegetation give off water vapor through pores in their leaves. Some water on the Earth's surface is not absorbed by plants or become groundwater, and it becomes surface runoff. This runoff may empty into lakes, rivers, and streams and then is carried back to the ocean where the cycle may begin. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. Its diameter currently measures just over 3,000 miles, about the size of the continental United States. Like Earth, Mercury is a terrestrial planet with three main layers: a core, a mantle, and a crust. Only Mercury's crust has no tectonic plates. Also, its iron core is enormous by comparison, making up 85% of its radius, while Earth's inner and outer core account for just 55%. Because of the core's exceptional size, it's had a surprising influence on Mercury's overall size, by causing it to shrink. The hot iron core has slowly cooled and contracted over the planet's 4.5 billion years. In doing so, it pulled Mercury's surface inward and has caused the planet to shrink radially by more than 4 miles. This shrinking planet is also the planet closest to the Sun, orbiting our solar system's star at an average distance of roughly 36 million miles. Such proximity affects Mercury's atmosphere, or rather, the lack of one. It only has a very thin exosphere, which is traditionally the outermost layer of a planet's atmosphere. This exosphere is made of oxygen, sodium, hydrogen, helium, and potassium, all whipped up from the planet's surface by solar winds. Kelly, for a glimpse of what the US economy might look like in the future, we head to Scandinavia. No country is dropping cash as fast as Sweden. Just 13% of people there reported using cash to buy something last year. But as Maddie Savage reports from Stockholm, some Swedes are concerned that things have changed too quickly. Maddie Savage, byline, next to the cinnamon buns and open sandwiches at this restaurant, there's a large blue sign with the English word cash crossed out. Notes and coins stopped being accepted here a year ago after staff noticed most people were hardly using them. Christopher Lube, it was super rare, I'd say 5%, something like that, in the restaurant was using cash. Savage, that's General Manager Christopher Lube, who's been keeping an eye on how customers have responded. Lube, there's hardly been any reaction. Almost everybody has the alternative payment method, a credit card, and it's good for both the guests and for US. Savage, he says scrapping cash saves time at the till and helps protect against theft. What was interesting and revealing about younger and middle-aged views on old age was how relative these were to the individual's own age. Those in their teens regarded 40 as old, whereas those in their 40s thought 70 or 80 was old. For many, health was seen as a determining factor in deciding who is old, and many young participants commented on how fit and active their grandparents are, while others thought ill health and dependence were an inevitable part of aging. The majority of participants, however, regarded old age as something negative, and many expressed fear of growing old. Lead-in time is the amount of time that elapses between a business placing an order with a supplier for more stock or raw materials and the delivery of the goods to the business. Businesses want the lead time to be as short as possible, so that they can meet their customer orders and minimize the time between paying for the stock and receiving the feedback from the customer. However, this may not happen due to a number of factors, such as delays in the supplier receiving the order, or the breakdown of the supplier's lorries delivering the stock to the business. The earlier chocolate was quite unpalatable. They used to add things to it to make it more palatable, so for the early chocolate, they didn't know how to extract all the cocoa fat from it, so it was, or could be quite greasy, and if you made it as a drink you'd have this sort of scum on the top. So they used to try and add things to it, like starch and things, to make it a more palatable product. So there were a lot of scandals around the kind of things they were adding to chocolate in the 19th century. So by the sort of 1870s, 1880s, there are people like Cadbury's saying, our chocolate is absolutely pure. We have this new process, the Van Houten process, which now extracts all this horrible fat that we can use to make eating chocolate. Now we have a pure product. To understand the roots of procrastination helps us weaken it. We know where it comes from. I can be aware of and see these dynamics happening in front of me, but another kind of awareness is to gain awareness of what we're feeling. What do approach motives feel like versus avoidance? We know when we're cleaning the fridge in our dorm room the night before the final exam that that's procrastination. But there are other times it's not so clear. Is checking your email procrastination? Is studying or doing the task on the low important item on your list, is that procrastination? A lot of times it is. So the more we know, the greater awareness we have of our tendencies and our motivations, we are more likely to overcome them. So we want to cultivate a stance, an observer's stance, and say, what does this feel like? What am I experiencing? What am I thinking? So that Sve can then actively choose what we want to feel and think and what we're motivated by. Why, today, on A Moment of Science, it's time for another round of baby skills, that fun and wacky guessing game that shows your baby is up to more than crying and napping. And today's question is, what can 6-month-olds do better than 9-month-olds? Don, care to take a stab at it? Well, I don't really know, y'all. I thought 9-month-olds would be better at just about everything. Why, sorry, Dawn. It turns out that 6-month-olds are better than 9-month-olds at recognizing certain faces. In a recent study, scientists observed that 6-month-olds are equally good at distinguishing between non-human faces, as they are at distinguishing between human faces. It's amazing. Just think about this: the next time you're talking to somebody, how long do you talk to somebody you've just met before you really notice what color their eyes are? What shape is their eyebrow? What color clothing are they wearing? If it's a woman or a man, are they wearing jewelry? What is it? Where did it come from? How are they sitting? What clue am I getting from them? We don't notice one another nearly as much as we think we do. And I found it has built up my empathy. At least I think it has. But I find myself much more comfortable with other people. This is an amazing thing. I find other people less annoying. Isn't that funny? Because I get a little more empathy about what they're going through or what I think they're going through or what I can hear from things they say, and instead of being annoyed by them I think I know where this is coming from and it explains it. And just getting the explanation of what might otherwise be annoying behavior or an annoying thing they're saying, the annoyance kind of evaporates. It's not that empathy is making me a better person, it just gives me a little more patience. I find, and I think other people who have studied empathy have found, that there's more patience associated with
I think with our linguistic training we also get all this invisible training to be authorities, to be the people who know. It is part of that process that you come out as a world authority on your chosen subject. But when we move into working with communities, we have to recognize that the communities have to be the authority in their language. Actually, a woman in the class I'm teaching at Sydney at the moment, a career woman, expressed this very nicely. Although she was talking about something else, she was distinguishing expertise from authority. And certainly linguists, because of the training we do, have expertise in certain very narrow areas of language, but we don't have the authority over what to do with that knowledge or what to do with other knowledge that the community produces. I guess for me the bottom line is languages are lost because of the dominance of one person over another. That's not rocket science, it's not hard to work that out. But then what that means is if in working with language revival we continue to hold the authority, we actually haven't done anything towards undoing how languages are lost in the first place, so in a sense, the languages are still lost if the authority is still lost. I have said before that you can't have a civilization that doesn't have art. When we think about the great civilizations historically, all of them had a great production of culture and art because society did not fail to observe itself. The sophistication of the great civilizations were their ability to look at themselves. What exactly allows a society to do to be the producers of art and culture and to mirror back to the core of the society? What is being produced at that moment? How do people think of themselves? And how are the individuals relating to the social structure at that time? Art is the vehicle in which guides us towards understanding what we were you to take away from art. What would be that mirror? How do we see what we are about? How would we understand what was going on in Paris at the time of the Impressionists? When people were learning to see in a completely different way before cinematography and a similar link that was invented, people looked at the world in a very different way, which was considered very radical at that time. Height is correlated with a lot of things. Up to a certain height, taller people make more money than the vertically challenged. And the taller presidential candidate almost always wins. Now, a study finds that your height as an adult has a profound effect on your perception of your health. Short people judge their health to be worse than average, or tall people judge theirs. The research was published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology. Data for the study came from the 2003 Health Survey for England. More than 14,000 participants filled out questionnaires and had their heights measured. The study only looked at how good the subject thought his or her health was, not their actual health. Questions focused on 5 areas: mobility, self-care, normal activities, pain or discomfort, and anxiety or depression. Men shorter than about 5 feet 4 inches and women shorter than 5 foot reported the worst impressions. But small increases in height at the low end had much bigger effects on perception than the same increase among taller people. Other studies have shown, ironically, that shorter people on average actually live longer. They tried to edify the child with music. The average salary is correlated with length of education. The new airport will facilitate the development of tourism.